By the end of 2026, I am going to become a full-time content creator. And it is not in the way that you probably think. When most people think about content creation or going full-time as a content creator, they're likely thinking of the monetization side of things. And granted, my hope is that there is going to be some form of monetization that happens, but that is not the driving factor behind why or how I plan on becoming a full-time content creator. When I say full-time content creator, what I really mean is living in or existing in a constant state of creativity. I want to restart something that I started back in 2017, which is creating out of what my creator is teaching me. I want to live in that place and constantly exist in that space for as long as I can. And I want to make a practice of that. When I think back to that season of God calling me to start content creation, it wasn't because there was a monetization goal behind it. It wasn't because I wanted to get brand deals. It wasn't because I wanted to launch a bunch of digital products. I just had a strong desire to show up and share with the girls the things that the Lord was teaching me. And I want to start creating in that way again. I miss that version of myself. I miss the curiosity. I miss being a student. I miss learning. I miss sharing. I miss the conversations that flow out of the things that I share. And by the end of 2026, from the strategy, the system, and the support that I am using to get there, my hope is that I am going to be living that full-time creative life, in the words of my little sister, Katia. Okay, so in today's episode, I am going to be sharing with you the details around my goals as it pertains to becoming a full-time content creator by the end of the year. I'm also going to share the why behind it, and then I'm going to be sharing the system, the strategy, and the support, not in that particular order, on how I plan on getting there. I think it's important to note before we dive into today's episode, my value in this season, the thing that I value most, that I treasure most, is consistency over everything, because there are two things that I'm wanting to develop within myself is trusting the Lord, trying to become a full-time content creator, not knowing what's going to happen, what it's going to do. I don't know if I can do it, even though I did it before, but it's not the same. Like, I'm not the same person, even. Like, that's scary, but I want to trust God because I genuinely believe He's called me here, and I want to trust Him every step of the way, even though I don't fully know the entire picture or what the end of this is going to look like. So that's one thing that I want to develop within myself. The second thing that I want to develop is trust with me. Okay. I want to keep the promise that I'm making to myself of only focusing on content creation. And the reason as to why I want to do that is because I feel like for a while, I have had these dreams and had these goals and had these desire to do these things. Sometimes I've even said them out loud. Sometimes I've said them publicly, and there was never really any follow through. And the more and more I continue to do that, dream all these big dreams, but never putting in the steps or building out the systems or the strategy or the support that I needed to get there, the more and more I started to trust myself less. I realized that I really value consistency because I want to be somebody who trusts themselves. I want to keep the promises that I make to myself. I want to be a person of integrity, even to myself. And I know that outpouring of that is going to be impactful for other people, I'm sure, but that's not really the point. I really want to build integrity within me, for me. And those are the two core things that I'm hoping to develop through this whole entire thing. And if you're like me and you might be feeling like God is calling you to something, maybe it's specifically to start creating content online. I hope that this is going to teach you a thing or two or encourage you on that journey as you pursue it, and that you would detach yourself from the more quote unquote tangible outcomes of what can happen when you pursue full time content creation, but focus more so on the internal work that can happen, the things that God can really do inside of you when you say yes to the thing that He's calling you to do. With that said, girl, let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Hey, girl, hey, I'm Rose Lauriston, and I want to welcome you back to callgirls.com. Okay, so I really want to share with you again that my goal is to become a full time content creator. And like I said in the very beginning of this episode, that means something very different for me. It is not so much about the monetization, though I have hopes and there are digital products and services that I am selling. And the only reason I'm really even providing the service or the digital product to begin with, it's because it is an outpouring of what God is teaching me and sharing me. So I know that it'll be of help to other people. It's less about the monetization and more of an act of service. It's more so about being able to exist in a constant state of creativity. I helped my sister come up with this concept of living a full-time creative life. She's an artist, she's a writer, and she's really great at design. And she wants to be able to go full-time in that space and in that world. She also wants to be involved in the doing of the art, in the creating of the art, in the writing process, like actively involved in the designing process. Like she wants to be creating every single day. And when we thought about it, when I was helping her with her brand strategy, the concept that we came up with was it's not just the doing, it's also the being, which is very similar to what I believe being a call girl is and the ideas that I have about calling in general and the called lifestyle. It's about both being and doing. We came up with the concept, the idea here of the being and the doing is to her, live a full-time creative life. And I feel like that is the exact language that I would use for what it is that I desire by the end of the year. I want to live a full-time creative life. Monetization is a bonus on top of that. But to me, full time creative life means creating out of what God is teaching me, what my creator is teaching me. I want to create content from the things that the Lord teaches me, what he shows me. And the reason as to why I really want to do this is because that is how I started creating content. I tell this story often, but back in 2017 was my first pull towards content creation. And it had nothing to do with trying to monetize, though maybe in the back of my brain, that's what I was probably hoping for and trying to do. But really, the pull of it all, the invitation was more because I just wanted to share the things that I was learning about the Lord, the things that he was teaching me. I couldn't believe for the life of me, first of all, God is real. Even though I grew up in a Christian church, I just didn't think that this is probably just not my thing. The Zols are taking everything a little bit too serious. I don't know about this. But once I got to that 2016 time of my life, that era, I realized that, oh, the way that my life is going, I don't really like that. I don't like that at all. I don't know what to do. I can't save myself. I don't know how to change this. And then I really met Jesus. And I couldn't believe he was real. He knew me. He saw me and he wanted me. Girl, I was absolutely amazed. I was like, I can, like, this is too much, God. I can't believe this. The fact that God wanted me pulled me towards him. I started learning more about him. I started having questions. My curiosities turned towards Christ, and everything that I was able to gather from the things that I was learning I wanted to share. I was part of a small group and everything like that in my local church. And I'm sure that the girls were just sick and tired of hearing me go on and on about all of the things that I was learning with the Lord. But that didn't really stop me. In fact, that is what drew me to start creating content online because I'm like, they're not the only people who need to hear about this. Everybody and their dad needs to hear about this. And so I started creating content online and things like that, just really sharing the lessons that I was learning. This is the start of the very first brand I've ever built, which was called Christian Cup. You can no longer find anything like it online. I deleted it all or archived a bunch of it. But man, what an era, especially when I think about the posture of my heart in that season and the joy it brought me just to show up and talk and yap and create content around the things that the Lord was teaching me. And I just really want to bring that energy into my life again because I think that's a amazing state to exist in. And I found that I'm most true to myself when I exist in that place. Another reason as to why I want to do this is because in this season, I feel like I'm more concerned with my being rather than my doing. And what I mean by this is that I know that if I concern myself more with who I am, who I'm becoming, who I belong to, and all of these types of things, I know that my doing the things that I get to do, like content creation, will be an outpouring of that stuff. If I posture and position myself in who I am becoming, who I belong to, the outpour of that will affect the work. It will affect the work that God is calling me to do in this season, whether that's content creation, my call to being a full-time stay-at-home wife, me managing my household well, all of the different areas of life that I've been called to and things like that. And so I know that is something that God is concerned with. And so I want to concern myself with it as well. And I think that my history really shows proof, okay? Proof that this is what works for me. Proof of that truth. Pursuing full time content creation in the way that I have decided to define it is going to ensure that I continue to exist in that space. So now let me go ahead and share with you how I plan on making this happen, how I plan on doing this full time. So there are 3 parts to my plan. I have my strategy, I have my systems, and then I also have my support. So we'll start with strategy and then work our way through systems and support. So for strategy, my strategy around content creation is fairly similar to the way that I think about personal branding. And when you think about the idea of personal branding, it's about presenting yourself or positioning yourself, you as valuable to others. But the more and more that I've thought deeply about personal branding and my experience in actually building brands with people, for people, all of those types of things, I have found, and even in my own journey of building my own personal brand, I have found that your personal brand is linked to your personal growth. It is linked to your personal life. And I don't think you can build a personal brand without bringing some type or some areas of your personal life into the mix or your personal growth into the mix. They are all chained and linked together. And so when I started thinking about, first of all, I just started creating the content and allowed the strategy to flow out of the way that I was creating. But when I reverse engineered the content that I was creating, all of my content stemmed from one place, my personal stories. And when I think strategy wise, I think that everything with my personal brand has to link back to my personal story. And I think that there are two areas of personal story that we need to take into consideration, that I had to take into consideration. And it's the story of my past and the story of my present. My past, meaning things that have happened to me, the lessons that I've learned, the things that the Lord has taught me, but also present, which are things that the Lord is teaching me now, the life that I'm living right now, the things that I'm experiencing right now. And for a while there, I was very hesitant with present stories because there's a level of documentation that is required for you to tell a present story or to show up presently and share what's actively happening in your life, whether it has come to a completed state, it's in a completed state or not. There's a level of vulnerability that's there that you need. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to bring that level of vulnerability to the forefront. But the more and more I recognize, going back to my why, of this is more about my personal growth than it is about the work that I do, and that the work that I do is an outpouring of my personal growth. The more and more I'm leaning into the present stories of my life too. I think that there is so much value in both past and present stories and bringing those to the forefront of your content strategy and letting that, the personal stories, be the foundation of the brand, the personal brand that you're building. But these past and present personal stories really showed me my position, the position or the stance that I wanted to take online for such a time as this. Like, we've all read Esther, okay? I am assuming that you're a Christian girl who loves God. You be in your Bible, okay? So you know the story of Esther. Esther was called to take her position to become queen for a season, for such a time as this, because her people were about to perish and God needed her to be in position to prevent that from happening. And so I believe that in many seasons of our life, there is a particular position that we need to take. And for me, when I think about it as it pertains to showing up online, I have to also take a position. There must be a stance that I take. And so for me, my position is centered around this idea of calling. Call Girls is literally the name of my brand. That is all part of my position. And for me, my goal here, my stance in the online space is to share my journey with the hope that I get to teach and encourage y'all to pursue the call on your life as well. Just like I'm documenting and journeying through pursuing the call that is on my own life, I am hoping that encourages and teaches you to do the same. And so that's the stance and the position that I have chosen to take online. But the only reason I'm able to know that is because I went back to my story, okay? Both the past and the present, and found the common thread between those two to develop what my position is. From my position, that gave me clarity on what my point of view online is going to be. Like, what is my perspective? What is my point of view? What am I really trying to say out here? And how does that also shape my voice within the online space? And so for me, my point of view is very simple. And I've been saying it throughout this video over and over again. And it's that God is more concerned about the work that He is doing in you than the work that He wants to do through you, because He knows that the work He does in you can become an outpouring, or the work that He does through you can be an outpouring of the work that He does in you. And that's why that's my focus for this season. That's what being a full time content creator means to me. And that is the perspective that I hold within the online space as I'm just pursuing content creation. Like, whatever piece of content that I create, you will find, and you'll see that through the pillars that I'm going to share in a bit, that there is this through line of the inner work and the outer work being an outpouring of said inner work. Okay. And so that leads me to talking about more so what my content pillars are. When I was trying to develop my content pillars, I had to explore life. I had to explore my life, still going back to my personal stories, both past and present, and things like that, to pull out pillars that spoke to specifically that point of view. And what I came out with are 3 pillars. I have the called lifestyle, which we'll talk about. I also have my call to actually create content online, sharing that journey and that process, which is what this video is all about. And then also my personal curriculum, which is how I'm like participating in the process of my sanctification journey, especially as I'm pursuing content creation and things like that. And so the called lifestyle, let's talk about what that pillar means. So this is literally all my findings, all my learnings about calling, the details, the nitty gritty, the things that you might need, the things that you need to know, the knowledge that I've gathered, all of the types of things. That's what this particular pillar is for. And this is probably the pillar where I'm going to probably be doing most of the teaching, because these are based off of like the things that the Lord has taught me over the course of the last few years when it comes to calling. If you haven't already, you should check out my last video where I actually shared what calling actually is, an overview of calling, what it encompasses, the makeup of calling, and things like that, and how understanding, having knowledge, understanding, and wisdom about calling in general can help you make sound decisions on whatever it is that God is calling you to do. You should go check that out. But that is basically what the called lifestyle pillar is all about. Sometimes it'll be very overview content, like that particular piece of content. Sometimes it'll be very specific, where I'm speaking to specific areas within the called lifestyle. At least that's what I'm naming it. And then the second content pillar that I have, like I said, is my call to content creation. And I think that this is more so about me documenting and sharing my pursuit of content creation, the things that I'm learning, what I'm actively doing, and things like that, like this video, perspectives that I'm getting and learning. And then also like commentary of what is happening as a whole in the world of content creation and the creator economy, but also like how does that tie to faith and things like that, which I think you can see a little bit of that in this video when I define what being a full-time content creator means to me. And that's what I'm really exploring within that particular pillar. The third pillar is going to be my personal curriculum pillar, which we're going to explore a little bit more in the supporting section of this episode. So, my personal curriculum pillar is where I create a personal curriculum every single month. Sometimes it won't be every single month. Sometimes I'll take the pillar that I've been focusing on and bring it into the next month, just depending on how I feel like the Holy Spirit is leading me. But this is more of an attempt to document or actively participate in the sanctification process, or actively participate in the work that the Lord is doing in me as I am pursuing the thing that He is telling me to do and stuff like that. I want to document this more so for myself. But again, because my position is to pursue my call with the hopes that it encourages and teaches you how to do the same, I think it would be helpful to share how I'm actively participating in that sanctification process and how I'm using a trend like personal curriculum to do that, to make it fun. Because I don't think that God wants us to be miserable as He's changing us to conform into the image of Christ. I think He wants us to have fun and He wants us to enjoy the process. I feel like a personal curriculum is fun. I've always loved learning. Okay. That has been like my middle name since I was a little girl. And so to me, this also allows me to lean back into being childlike, having fun, and just enjoying the process of pursuing the call while still actively participating in it with the Holy Spirit. This is not going to nullify the suffering that might come along the way as I'm pursuing this, but I don't think suffering is without joy. I think you can suffer and still have joy. And I think that having a personal curriculum can help you to do exactly that. And so, yeah, those are my three content pillars. And then my pillars help me then develop what my visual presence is going to look like, as you can see through the banner I have on YouTube, through the way that my stuff looks on Substack, through the templates that I use to create content, etc. And then also deciding the platforms that make the most sense. So for me, I think of choosing your platforms twofold, your primary and then your supporting. I think it is really hard to focus on multiple platforms at a time without knowing what the primary platform that you're choosing is. I think it just makes your life harder. So I have learned to focus on one primary platform, and for me, that's YouTube, and then have supporting platforms if it makes sense. So my supporting platforms to pair with YouTube is going to be Substack. The Substacks that I write are going to be basically guides that pair with the YouTube video that I create. And they're meant to deepen the relationship that I'm building with my community. So, like, for example, it's easy that when you're listening to an episode on YouTube or on whatever streaming platform that you listen to podcasts on and things like that, for you to just be going about your day, doing life or whatever, and just having the video play in the background. But if you can have a tangible guide that you can sit down, read through while you're sipping on your tea or your coffee or drinking your little water or whatever the case may be, it just creates more intention and relationship with you and the people that you're trying to create for and show up for and things like that. And then I also create on TikTok. It's also a supporting platform. And the goal of TikTok is more so of reach. Like we already know, like when you're scrolling on TikTok, you are not necessarily scrolling on the people that you followed. You're scrolling on your for you, looking for people, looking for stuff. And I think that considering the way that we consume content on that particular platform, it's made for reach. And so the goal is to take particular clips from my YouTube video, turning certain parts into a carousel, or maybe doing a off the riff type of video and stuff like that to upload and share onto TikTok will create that reach because naturally people are on their For You page and that'll allow me to reach more people, bring them into the YouTube ecosystem instead. So that's how I'm seeing platform selection. And that is the overall strategy. As you can see, it starts with my personal story, but it leads all the way into platform selection so that I am intentional about the decisions that I'm making when it comes to content creation. So that's my strategy. The second thing I want to get into is the system that I'm using to create content on a week to week basis. I do have a workflow that I follow for content creation that I want to walk you through. There's ideation, scripting, filming, editing, optimization for upload, and then repurposing. Okay. And so I'm going to walk you through what it looks like in each of these areas for my workflow. So I ideate my content first, obviously. Like you can't create content without ideating the content. And the thing that helps me with ideation is knowing my pillars, and then pairing that with a content type. So I talked a little bit earlier about what my content pillars are, but I think it's important to know that there are content types or formats, ways that you can create that content, ways that you could say or talk about those particular pillars or show those particular pillars and stuff like that. And typically you will hear about education, entertainment, inspirational, and all of those angles in which you can create from your pillar. I'm going a different approach with my content types, and I'll share a little bit. with you on what they are. So I have 4 content types in total. The first one is lessons learned, and this is what challenges me to look back at my past stories within the context of the 3 pillars that I'm using or creating around. The second content type is more so documentation, when I'm just looking around and looking at my life at present, but within, again, the context of the 3 pillars that I've decided to create content around. So documentation. Then I have perspective, which is more formulated opinions that I have about the different areas, the different content pillars that I have. And then commentary. So, is there a cultural thing, trend, something that's happening that speaks to any of the pillars that I want to speak to? And I feel like rotating through these different content types allows me to continue to one, stay in position, still be aligned with my point of view, and still stay within the umbrella of the content pillars that are leading the conversations that I want to have within the content that I'm creating. So again, I use my content pillars and a content type to ideate or formulate an idea of what it is that I want to create content around. For example, for this piece of content, I use the content pillar of my content creation journey, and I am documenting right now where I'm just literally telling you, sharing with you, and this is also for personal use because I could look back at this as well. Basically, sharing my process, the process that I'm actively taking right now to become a full time content creator by the end of 2026. So, that's how I came up with this particular idea. It's very documentation style. Now, documentation can look more vlog style, but it can also literally just be you sitting down with a mic and you're just telling it like it is and stuff like that. I don't think that documentation has to be vlog-like at all. It's just dependent on the type of creator you are. I'm a yapper. I love to yap. So that's probably 9 times out of 10 what you're gonna be seeing on this channel. Okay, ideation. The second part is scripting. And scripting is a finicky thing. A lot of people have different opinions about the way that you could script, but I think that having a formula makes it so much easier. And it's crazy because my script today is in my notebook, but typically this is something that I do inside of Notion. I think having a formula to your script makes it easy for you to be able to guide the conversation that you're having online. And so the way that I think about scripting is first, I have a hook. This is a structure hook, context, the value that you want to provide, and then a call to action. Okay. Hook, context, value, and then the call to action. If you look back at this video or any of the videos that I've previously created, you will see that is literally the formula that I create content around. Hook, context, value, call to action. Very simple, but makes the piece of content that you're creating feel holistic in the sense that the hook obviously captures attention, the context give people a reason to continue watching or even shares the reason as to why you want to create this piece of content. The value is literally the whole point of the video. It is the meat and the potatoes. This can be very listicle. This can be literally a story. I don't know. It could be whatever it is that you want. It's really based off of the content type that you choose to go with. And then your call to action. What do you want them to do next? And I think that formula is very simple. It can be plugged into a long form piece of content, which remember, this is my primary, so I create for my primary, and then I pull supporting pieces of content from my primary, or this can be used for short form content. So if your primary is short form content, you can literally still use the same scripting format for that. Okay, so that's how I script. And typically, again, I do that inside of Notion or inside of a notebook, depending on the mood. Okay. So from scripting, I then go into filming. Now, the way in which I film in particular is either using my Sony ZV-1 and I'm using it specifically to hook it into Descript, which is the software I use for both filming and editing more specifically. It just is easier to stream it into there. But something that I've noticed about doing that is that it lowers the quality of my video completely, which I'm not really fussing at, but I have been having a problem with doing that lately because I don't know if it's because of the Descript app itself or what, but you know how Apple has like the little emojis that pop up when you do like a thumbs up or like whatever the case may be, balloons will pop up. It started doing that in my videos and it was really upsetting me. And so I had to figure out a different way. So I definitely whipped out my phone. Like I could totally do it on my camera, but I'm trying to find the easiest way to create content. And right now that's just my phone. So until we figure out how to do that with my camera, I'm using my phone. So I either jump between my Sony ZV-1 or my phone to make sure that I'm able to film my content. And I'm always either using this type of lavalier mic or like my podcast mic. Either way, the goal is to get great quality sound or audio with my videos. So that's filming for me. For editing, the software that I use is Descript. I will say 10 out of 10 when it comes to editing on Descript. And specifically, it is because of two things. Their AI, the AI that's being used to speed up the process of editing, and also the text to edit part of their software. Those 2 things make editing so easy, so simple to where I could have been spending 3 plus hours editing a video. I can get a video edited in 1 hour. Love her down, can't get enough of her. Absolutely yes to the script, and if you want access to her, girl, you can go ahead and click the link below. I don't even know what the commission is. A small commission if you use my link to get the script for yourself. It's not expensive per month at all, but it is definitely worth the purchase, worth the use. I think you can also get it for free, but it you don't have enough a lot of storage on the software if you use the free version. So I definitely recommend getting the paid version, especially when it comes to editing your content. And if you're filming inside of it, it does wonders, okay? All right. So that is how I edit my videos. Then from editing, I go into optimizing for upload. Okay. So because my primary platform is YouTube, I have to optimize the platform or optimize to make sure that I'm uploading and getting my money's worth, for lack of better words, on YouTube and stuff like that. And so the way in which I do that is obviously thumbnail, making sure that my thumbnail one is optimized for click ability so that people want to click on it, but also it matches the presence, the visual presence that I want to have online. So those are the two things when it comes to thumbnails. Two is like title, making sure that it is SEO rich, an emotive title, something that is compelling and makes people want to click on it. And then it is keywords, using keywords that are going to drive traffic from people who are interested in particular topics. I have found to be really helpful. I also think something that is beneficial too is making sure that you are going keyword heavy with your description and also having a template where you can access all of the links that you will typically have within your description box and stuff like that. Links to the resources that you might be using, the tools that you might be using, your offers, or whatever the case may be. Just easy access to those things so that you can put them in the description box. You could put them in a pinned comment. Like it's just easy reach where you're not having to go and look for all of these links over and over again every single time you upload a video. I have it in one place and they're used to optimize again every single time I upload my videos on YouTube. So again, thumbnail, title, keywords, and the entire whole description section from like the actual description of the video to the actual links that I'm using, the links of the things that I might mention within the video or that I always have within my description box in general. From uploading and having that optimized and things like that, now I can go into repurposing my content. And I repurpose my content to my supporting platforms, which is why having your strategy is so important because it ensures that you're not just doing a bunch of stuff for the sake of doing a bunch of stuff, that you're not everywhere for the sake of being everywhere, girl. Like my primary is YouTube. I ideate and go through this whole workflow for YouTube, but for Substack and TikTok, it's a little bit different. So how I repurpose for Substack is that Substack is more so of the called girl guide. So Substack is more of a guide that pairs with the video. And so basically I just take my transcript, plug it into AI and have AI pull out different key pieces that will fit within the template that I created for my guides. So that's a process that's very simple. And then I go in and clean up everything that AI did, ensuring that it is actually true to the actual video that I created. And again, that is specifically for relationship, deepening relationship with my people. For TikTok, it's more so about reach. So I will take a clip from the episode. I will turn something that I said within the episode into a carousel. If I'm in the mood, because I like to yap, I'm gonna pop up my camera and talk about something that is specifically about the video that I created and things like that. I'm not putting pressure on myself to be posting on TikTok 3 times a day 6 times a week, like, girl, that's dead. That is not my primary platform. I'm not giving her that much energy. My energy goes to who? YouTube. Everything else is supporting what I do on this particular platform. And that is basically the system, the workflow that I'm using to create content consistently as I am pursuing my call to become a full-time content creator. Okay? Now, finally, we have support. What is supporting me along this process? And this is where personal curriculums come into play. That is my mode of support. As much as it is a content pillar that I'm creating content around, it is something that I'm also actively doing in my personal life. Like, how can you be creating content around personal curriculums if you're not actively doing the personal curriculum? Kind of crazy. So, that is the support system that I'm using for my content creation. And the way that I do that is that at the end of every single month, basically, and this kind of came out of my February reset. At the end of the month, I reset to figure out, and I do this within a membership that I'm a part of, but I sit down to reset and think about what happened within the last month and what I could do better the following month to make sure that I am moving the needle towards accomplishing my goals. I found this month, at least for the month of February, I was really struggling with creative discipline in the sense that every single time I had an idea, I wanted to run with it. So it started creating this false belief within me that I wasn't actually accomplishing anything because the things that I set out to do, even though in some instances I was following through on those things, I never felt like that was enough because all of these other ideas that kept on coming to mind. And so for the month of March, my personal curriculum has been creative discipline. And the practice that I'm holding for this personal curriculum is to have an idea parking lot where every single time I have an idea, I park it. And I love it because it allows me to continue to honor the imagination that the Lord has given me. Like, I'm always having an idea. I always am thinking about things. I have some thoughts. This is what me and my girl be talking about all the time. We always are like, I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts. But I always literally have some thoughts. And I thank God for that. Like, I think it's a gift to have a brain like that, right? But I also think that if not checked, it could be a problem. And the idea parking lot is keeping a hold on that particular thing. And so when I think about support in general, the way that I'm approaching it is through that personal curriculum format so that I reflect on the previous month. How am I going with the thing that I said that I want to do by the end of the year? How did I do this month? Where was I lacking? How can I bring it into the next month? And that begins to shape the theme for my personal curriculum. From the theme, then I now choose the material, the reading material that I'm going to be using as an anchor for what I'm learning and things like that. So I'll choose a nonfiction book and also a fiction book. Nonfiction because the nonfiction, but fiction because, girl, I love fiction. Okay. And I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I enjoy that part of reading. I love reading. That's my favorite thing. I'm not big on nonfiction, but I know that it's good, but I'm not gonna just stick to just nonfiction because that's not my vibe, okay? So fiction books it is. I'm also thinking of incorporating some form of biblical meditation. So finding a scripture that I can meditate on for the entire month, which is that is not the same thing as like studying my Bible on the daily or reading my Bible every single day or whatever the case may be, but just having a specific scripture that I will put out on a little card, a note card or something like that, or maybe just do a whole thing that I can hang on my board, hang on my wall, hang on my mirror, hang somewhere that I can continuously use to meditate on that is related to the theme for the month. I'm thinking about incorporating that. I think that makes a lot of sense. From there, once I have like my main reading material, then I get supporting material. And supporting material can look like an article, it can look like a podcast, it can look like a movie or a show or whatever the case may be, something, a documentary, like anything that can help with the support, like supporting the process of what it is that I'm learning in my personal curriculum and things like that. But I'm making sure that I'm creating guardrails because I know I like to overconsume a little bit. So I'm not going to give myself too much leeway in that way. So yeah, so again, theme, then I have my main material and then my supporting material. And then I also have a practice or a lab, like I like to call it. And in this lab is where I'm actually practicing the thing that I need to be learning. I think it's really important to make whatever it is you're learning experiential, because I don't think you just learn from reading a bunch of things. You have to bring about application. When you think about being in math, you didn't understand math when your professor just came to the board and explained this math theory to you. You had to practice it over and over again to make it make sense in your brain. And I think that kind of flows right into this same thing of the personal curriculum. How can I put this particular thing into practice? Like for the month of March, my idea parking lot, that's my lab. So that's how I'm like using a personal curriculum to support this journey. And another part of the personal curriculum that I'm loving is also that there's a reflection journal that I have within it as well, where throughout the month, if I have thoughts or feelings, I can write that in my journal, and is directly linked to whatever personal curriculum that I'm probably doing for the month. All of this lives inside of Notion, by the way, which I'm thinking about. First of all, I've already put together my what I'm calling it right now, my brand world brain. I don't think that name is gonna stay because it doesn't feel right yet. I was thinking brand new world, but I'm still not sure. Either way, I'm thinking that it would be a good thing to add the personal curriculum inside of that particular Notion system for the girls who do purchase it, so that not only do they have access to the strategy so that they can build their own personal brand, they have access to the same system that I'm using to create content on a week to week basis, but they'll also have the support that they need along the way to ensure that they're hitting the goal of becoming a full time content creator. Noting that, again, the definition of becoming a full time content creator, at least in my context, is making sure that the content that you're creating is an outpouring of the work that God is doing in you. And so that's the approach. And I'm thinking about just adding it into the thing. I think it makes sense. Anyways, besides the point. But that is literally the entire plan to how I am going to become a full time content creator by the end of 2026. The way that I think about full time content creation, my definition of it. You understand why I'm approaching it this way. And now you also are clued into the plan that I am using to get to that goal, to accomplish that goal. And I want to know what you think in the comment section down below. What do you think about this definition of content creation, full-time content creation? What do you think about my why? What are your thoughts? And then also, what do you think about the plan, girl? Because the plan is extensive, okay? From the strategy to the system to the support, girl. There's a lot going on. But what do you think about it? And if this is something that you are interested in, you feel like God is calling you to full-time content creation, and you need a way that is feasible, that allows you to show up sustainably, and all of those types of things, you should grab the Notion system, girl. Now, I don't have a name for it yet. Right now, I'm calling it my brand world brain. It doesn't flow, okay? We're still thinking about the name. By the way, actually, if you have some ideas of what we should name this system, let me know in the comment section down below, because clearly your girl needs some help with that. But if you need something like that, the system is already built out for you, girl. The strategy is developed for you, girl. Literally, the support is there. All you got to do is go through the entire process, and bing, bam, boom, girl, you're going to be on your way to becoming a full-time content creator by the end of the year. And so definitely go ahead and grab a hold of that. And if you want support along the way from someone, i.e. me, go ahead and upgrade to booking a one-to-one session with me as well, a VIP day where we can work your strategy, work your system to work for you, and make sure that you are clear on how to develop a support system that makes sense for who you are, how you're wired, your temperament, the things that you value, the things that you struggle with, all the things. You're ensuring that the personal curriculum that you create for yourself, that support system, works for you. Okay? And with that said, girl, I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed recording it, even though iPhone, you know what they be doing. But I enjoyed creating this video. I hope you enjoyed tuning into it and just seeing the entire process and plan behind my goal of becoming a full-time content creator by the end of the year. I hope that this encourages you and teaches you a thing or two about pursuing whatever it is that God is calling you to do. Okay? With that said, girl, I love you with the love of Christ, and I will be seeing you in our next episode. TTYL.